But over a period of 3 months, nobody in the black community and many people in the white community just stopped shopping. So for 90 days, nobody bought anything but food or medicine. And people still kept going to jail and nothing was happening. Finally, the black leaders came in to see Dr. King and said, Martin, look, we were with you, but Birmingham is too tough. There's no way we're gonna get Bull Connor to give in on segregation. We want you to leave Birmingham and go up north, and maybe you can make some speeches, or you can talk to the president, or you can do something else, but what we're doing is not working. And Dr. King sat there and listened to him and didn't say a word, and then after about 2 hours of all of the doom and gloom, he got up and said, excuse me, and he went into the next room to the bathroom, I thought. But he stayed a long time. And when he came, when I went to the door to see what was the matter with him, he was on the bed with the pillow over his head, and I knew he was talking to his wife, Coretta. And I knew what he was telling her. She was pregnant with Bernice, and he was trying to reassure her that he would be all right, even though he had decided to go to jail. And he came back out, and he was very apologetic, and he said, you're probably right, but I can't leave. There are almost 500 people there in jail, and we don't have the money to bond them out. The only thing I know how to do morally and to salve my own conscience is to go in there with them. And so he left and led a march of about 50 people. There was supposed to be 500, but only 54 showed up. And when he was arrested and they roughed him up a little bit, the crowd got a little restive, and Bull Connor got a little restive, and he brought out the fire hoses and the police dogs, and you saw that scene that everybody in the world saw. It really wasn't as bad as it looked. Nobody really got bit. And the fire hoses would sting, but if you stand behind a tree, they couldn't hurt you. And somehow we got through and got everybody dispersed and back in the church and recommitted to nonviolence. And this was Good Friday in 1963. And we agreed that after church on Sunday, we would meet at a church about 4 blocks from the jail. And we would just march down to the jail and let Dr. King know that we were still keeping the movement going. Well, when we got there, it was like 5,000 or 6,000 people, not only in the church, all out in the street and everything else. And Bull Connor had put his fire hoses and his police dogs between us and the jail. So we said, look, we're gonna march down here and see if we can convince the chief to just let us go through the jail. It's just 2 blocks, and we'll go through the jail till the jail have song and a prayer and come back. But when we got there, we said, if you let people stand up, they'll get nervous and they might panic and start running. So everybody got down on their knees. And when you get 5,000 black folk down on their knees on a Sunday afternoon, and they start praying, they're not praying words. They moaning, and they started, help me Jesus, get us through this thing. And by the time the Spirit just sort of rose on the occasion. And the next thing I know, one of the preachers got happy, and he jumped up and he said, the Lord is with this movement. We going through to the jail. I said, oh my God. That's one thing when the police are on one side of the street with fire hoses and you on the other. But we were right there, 20, 30 feet. If they turned on those fire hoses, it would have broken people's ribs. And they start marching directly at the people with the fire hoses and the police dogs. Only Bull Connor screaming, "Stop them." And I watched these policemen just standing there. And I watched the firemen let the hoses drop to the ground with tears in their eyes because the prayers had gotten to them. The dogs weren't barking, they were wagging their tails. And we walked on through those fire trucks singing, "I want Jesus to walk with me." And when we got on the other side and you look back, one sister shouted, "Great God Almighty done parted the Red Sea one more time." And we went to the jail and we prayed, but we didn't know what was going on in the jail. In the jail, Martin Luther King was writing something that came to be known as the letter from the Birmingham jail. He had no paper, so he wrote around the margins of the newspaper. He had no books. He didn't even have a Bible. And when he ran out of space in the New York Times, he started writing on the toilet paper. Fortunately, in Alabama, they have tough toilet paper. When that letter came out and went around the world, it redefined racial segregation in moral and spiritual terms. And though that was nobody's plan, the next thing we knew, the 100 businessmen that I was meeting with were coming together willing to agree to desegregate their facilities, to hire black people, and to work with us to desegregate Birmingham, Alabama, even though it was still against George Wallace's law. But when 100 businessmen decide that the laws need to change, they change.